Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tracey Larin, founder and CEO of Curiosity Knocks. I'm here with a very special guest, Brooke Nicewander. I don't know if I said that right. I'm not the best with his name there, but anyways, the reason why we have him on today is I've been following Brooke for several years now, and I'm not too sure if he knows that. And one day I was sitting in my car, I was feeling, I do crisis management internationally in that. And at the time, I had a heavy load of kids on my plate that I was supervising, that type of thing. And I remember one morning I was sitting in my vehicle and just feeling a little bit downtrodden, a little bit exhausted. And all of a sudden I hit on this video by an accident. And here you are, Brooke, you're like, good morning, Facebook followers. And I was like, whoa, who is this guy? And at first I was like, oh, who's this guy? And then you started speaking and you started telling a little bit of your personal story. And it really, really drew me in. And there's just something very unique and very special about you. And over the years, I realized that you are what you are and you are who you say you are. And as you know, if you follow people a long time, they'll often shift. What I love about you, Brooke, is that you just kept growing and growing and growing and just really coming into yourself and your family. And I want to share you with the world because as you know, the world is a little bit tainted on how we should be raising our young men and our self-leaders in young men. And I'm really against some of the over-exaggerated status and masculinity, messages that are being sent out there. And a little bit about myself. I'm a single mom of two young men, and 27 and 21. And what I love about them is they could be dangerous if they wanted to be, but they choose not to be because they're respectful and loving. But if they need to protect, they can, but they also reserve, and they're both very maternal as well, as you are. So I'm going to give the show over to you for a second, and if you wouldn't mind introducing to the world basically who you are and a little bit of your personal story, I'm sure we'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Tracey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Oh, who am I? That is a deep question.
Yeah.
So, I started Starstruck Parenting as a YouTube channel just to get my passion for being a parent out there. A little bit about me. I was raised by a single mom. My mom and dad were both heroin addicts in East Vancouver when I was born.
Wow.
My father went out to try to support the family and committed armed robbery. He went to jail. My mom, basically, I got taken away by foster care right away. And by the time she had her first court appearance, she had kicked heroin and worked to get me back. I was in a couple of foster families. I don't really remember them. But all through my life, I always wanted to know who my dad was. I always, my mama says that I would be in a store and I'd be like, is he my dad? Is he my dad? Aww. And I'd just be pointing out and seeking that male connection.
Yeah.
And that led into things like when I was older, my mom would say, hey, do you want, if you want to meet your dad, I'll help you find him. And I was so angry that I did not want to have in my life. Or she said, asked me if I wanted to meet my dad's family, because as far as she knew, he was dead. And years later, when I did want to find him, he actually was dead. I met my brother, my half brother, my half sister, and so by the time the anger had subsided, and I wanted to reach out to that side of the family, that opportunity was gone. And so, I'll get to it a little bit later, but some stuff happened with my son, and I encouraged him to reach out to somebody who was not in his life anymore, wasn't good for him. But when I was a little, like, my mom would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and according to her, I always said I wanted to be a dad. And for the longest time, I
see that in you too. I see that in you very young, right?
Yeah, I wonder what was wrong with me. I was like, oh, relationships, all this stuff, and kids, and you know what? I saw all these people in society going through and marriage and divorce, married and divorced, and these broken families. And I watched, like, I had a stepfather for a number of years. I have his last name. I took it when him and my mom got married. But like, he started dating my mom when I was 4. I think they got
Right.
married when I was 12.
Right.
And in that time, I always wanted to call him dad, and he wouldn't let me.
Mm.
And so when they got married, then he started letting me. I took his last name. He was supposed to adopt me, but never did. And then when they got divorced,
Right.
he actually wanted to pay me to change my name.
Yeah, it's funny because I picked up on little pieces of your story and I've always tried to puzzle them together, but I'm an orphan as well. And my biological mother had never even been touched before and was raped. And so I'm a product of rape and was adopted by a military family. But I always had, you know, an inner desire to break the cycle as well. And that's one thing as I'm seeing the pattern of your history is that from the time of a taught, there was a shift in saying, hey, something's not quite right here, and you know, by being a better dad, a better human that way, I could actually change the legacy of my family.
Oh
Right,
yeah,
so it's like a deeper calling on your life, and that's the one thing I really pull from you is that I actually feel you emotionally on the other side. And I don't know if you know any too much about my story, but I was very disconnected for a long time. I just seen so much tragedy with kids, and like you said, families falling apart. The stats are like almost 67% of people being divorced. Kids are being thrown in foster homes. I own group homes. I worked in group homes. I worked in full lockdown for kids, court ordered boys that were disruptive. And one thing I love about you is that, you know, even though you had all this tragedy going on, it's like you said, you stayed true to who you are on the inside and created, you know, this like kind of almost like your purpose in your within your suffering. And that's like such a beautiful lesson to the world. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to let you
no,
know
it's
that
great.
that really it actually moves me. And not too many people online move me. Like I know it sounds mean, but you know, you don't see me out like searching for friends on Facebook, that type of thing. I have a small knit community. I keep to myself, but my life purpose is to help other people get through the other side of their pit, and that's why I have that. And another thing that I really like about your messages is you often talk about time, like how much time do you have to make money, how much time do you have in life, and you know, just everything around time and reaching out for help and that type of thing. So you know, even as a young person, you felt it within you. We do as young kids, and that's what I love about your starstruck parenting is that you encourage self leadership at a very young stage, and that's very important to pave the way. And like you're saying, even with your son, like you know, there's issues there, but you know, you're there to basically you're behind him and saying, you know, I'm going to help you through,
Yeah.
I'm going to guide you.
Well, I'm going to skip forward a bit here because
Yeah,
I could spend hours going over just my story because
I
I
could
have a
spend hours
crazy
just
life,
talking
right?
to you. So
But
yeah,
what you said there, right? That's really true. So
yeah,
when we're young, when we're little, we are connected to whatever you want to call it. You know, you want to call it source, God,
yeah.
your divine being, your inner self,
Felt it
whatever,
at 3. Mm-hmm.
however you want to look at it, right? I'm very broad because
Right.
whatever you believe is great, right?
That's
And
right.
that's
Yeah.
how I look at it.
Yeah.
And so when I was young, I had this belief that the universe provides that, and everything that I did turned out really well. And
Right.
then, you know, like I was running a sushi bar at 17 in a world-class fishing resort. I trained with the best sushi chef in North America
Wow.
at
Well, I
16.
didn't even know that about you.
Oh
That's
yeah, just like
crazy.
so things were going
Wow.
and in that industry, you know, I ended up falling into drugs and alcohol. And
Right.
I had my first fiance. It's interesting. Her name was Nicole. The woman I'm now married to is named Nicole. So
Yeah.
you know, whatever. But
You had the wrong Nikki.
yeah, exactly. So we were together and some stuff happened. And instead of
Right.
dealing with that
Getting
pain,
over.
I
Right.
ran away and I took off
Right.
and I ran a kitchen in a floating resort and then I was out on a boat and I ran for years. And I bring
Yeah.
this up because my son met that belief that I wanted to be a dad, that I always wanted to be a dad, that I
Right.
didn't want to make the same mistakes that were made for me.
Right.
Um, you know, my son basically saved my life. I didn't know about him until he was a year and a half old. At the time
Wow.
I was,
You know, I thought I remember something about that, but I didn't want to bring it up. But
it's okay.
I thought you
Yeah,
mentioned something like that.
I'm
Yeah.
very transparent.
Yeah. That's what I love about you. Me too.
So at the end of my drinking career,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
basically I was
Your
living,
drinking career.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I was living in a 14-foot camper trailer. You know, the kind that can let go on the back of a truck, up
Oh yeah.
above the inn that I worked at in the campground. And I was getting
Okay.
paychecks from them that were like, you owe us $50 because they would let me run a tab at the bar.
Right.
And so one day I get this knock on my door. It was my day off, and And my sous chef, Hamish, actually comes in and he's like, here, there's a message for you. Call your ex, it's about your son. And I'm like, what is this guy talking about? I don't have a son. I told him I don't have a son. I can't drink
Wow.
that
So
day.
she had Nicole left a message through him.
So
Wow.
this is how the universe works for you. Okay, so this is on Quadra Island where I grew up. So his mom had called my cell phone number that was on my Facebook. Now I hadn't had that phone in over 2 years.
Well, yeah, because
Hadn't
we're
had that
busy. We
phone.
don't think to update these little things.
So I was loaded all the time too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she called that number, and it just so happened that out of the like 40,000 people that could have been assigned that number, it was assigned to one of the people that I worked with.
You
And so
gotta be
when she
kidding me.
called in and she's like, "Hey, is
That's a
Brooke there?"
divine.
The
That's
girl's like, "No, this isn't Brooke's number, but I'll give you the INS number and you can get a message to him." And I found out about my son. I called her, and I left the island to come to the Lower Mainland to meet my son.
right.
I did everything right. I arranged to have a good reference and layoff and all that stuff. And then
Right.
I blew it all up with a vendor, and I got fired, a bad reference, and I came to the Lower Mainland. Tried to make things work with his mom. Bad idea. We were never meant to be together. My son was a product of a summer fling. And
Yeah. Oh, so then you tried to bring the relationship together, but there
yeah,
was
and
no
it was
connection in the
just
beginning.
no, like no,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll forever be grateful to her that I got my son with you, right? But
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and so what happened is she ended up I adjusted for a little bit, and she's like, you need to keep him, I can't handle him. And so I had him, he lived with me for 6 months. And so I have a cousin who used to work in a massage parlor.
Okay.
And so her and her daughter let me know that basically what Dustin's mom was doing, and that was what she was doing. And I was like, well, I don't want him around that. And
Right.
and
Like a rug and
so
tub kind of situation.
yeah, exactly. And so he lived with me for about 6 months. And then
Yeah. Good for you for taking him though,
well, here's the thing. During that time, I didn't know that I needed to get sober. I knew that I had an issue, but I didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And so my mom and I had a falling out. We had some neighbors, some renters downstairs, and I did something that was not conducive to our living arrangement. And
Right.
my mom and I were renting this house, and she's like, "You need to move." She's like, "I'll watch your son while I do it." And I was so angry with her, not taking any responsibility because it was me. I did it, but I didn't take
Right.
the responsibility. And I was like, and I
Yeah.
called Justin's mom and I said, "Hey, you want to take Justin for the weekend while I move?" And she took him, and I didn't see him for the next 4 years. She had
What?
taken off. Oh yeah. So I went and I realized
She
that
just like took off?
he took off. I
I'm
had
so
court papers that
sorry.
said he was supposed to live with me, and that I was the primary residence. And I was like, well, I can either fight this and go to court and try to fight it, figure out where she is, do all this stuff, but I'm of absolutely no use to him the way I am as a father.
Yeah.
So I went and threw myself into treatment.
Oh,
And
bless.
I'd like to say that I got sober and stayed sober at that time, but that wasn't the case. I was sober for just about 2 years. I got loaded again.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I lived on the third floor of this apartment. I was like 3 months behind in my rent. And I was like, I would look down and I'd be like, if I go head first, will I die or wake up in the hospital?
Well, that all comes
It was
with
like,
with addiction, right?
oh,
All of those things you're
absolutely.
saying. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not you. That's the thing.
No.
And I believe that when you're full of chemicals and that we're not aligned properly, we can get
No,
negative
it
messages
blocks you
feed
off
into them.
from a connection, right? And
Yeah.
so in the end, I if death would have been quick, I would have taken it. But at the time, I realized that I'm not one of those people that's going to die quickly. I'm not somebody who's going to overdose or something's
Yeah.
going to go on. It's going to be a long, slow, miserable existence. So
That's
I
right.
went back to treatment, and almost a year to the day that I went back and got sober, I'm sitting in it, and I use a program, but I was sitting in a meeting. And I get this message on Facebook from somebody I don't know. And I was like, whatever, I'm in the meeting. I go to the bathroom afterwards and it says, hey, but I'm going to give you another chance. Basically, she was doing the same thing, but wanted a babysitter.
Same pattern.
Same pattern.
Yeah.
She was doing the same thing, wanted a babysitter. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to judge. It's been 4 years. I haven't seen my son. I just want to see him. And so I had him on weekends for, from September to June. And in June, I got a call from the school wondering why I'd missed so much school. And in a
Oh,
whole other part, he missed over half the year of grade 1.
oh no.
And
And you had
so,
him on weekends, so how are you supposed to know, right?
well, I didn't know. And so I tried to
Yeah,
talk to her about it. She wouldn't talk to me about it. So I went to court. And
good for
here's the
you.
thing. I represented myself. And I got up in front of the judge and I told her why I was, what I had done, where I was, and what I had
Yeah.
done in my life together. And they're like, well, you should have, he should live. And I said to them, I said, you know what? This is what I figure that he lives with me. On
Mhm.
Friday nights, she didn't drive, lived in Burnaby. On Friday nights, I will drive him over there. I'll drop him off. And on Sunday, I will pick him up. She doesn't need to pay me for gas or anything like that.
Mhm.
And
Just
then he'll
flip it,
go to
flip
school
it.
during the week. And
Yeah.
she didn't like that, and she kidnapped him. And so,
Well, she didn't like that because then I don't know if she was coming after you for child support, but even depending on how she paid herself and that, there's some
yeah,
repercussions when you don't have them more than 40% of
yeah,
the time. So
yeah.
it's almost premeditated, and she's not thinking about your separation anxiety and the separation from the child bonding from you either.
So she,
So
anyway,
sorry.
that's okay. So she kidnapped him, and then the last time he saw her, she was getting in the back of a police car because I had to meet the RCMP up in uh, Alert Bay, and basically they had to go in and retrieve my son for me, and he's been with me ever since. And so
Good for
there was
you
a
for
couple.
fighting. A lot of guys don't.
Oh
A lot
yeah,
of guys give up. I have many cases right now I'm dealing with, even a own personal case of mine, and we're in a constant custody battle and constant lies and constant. It's horrible, and we
mhm,
suffer. It
yeah.
hurts. It
Well,
hurts because we all just want to love and share. Like, why can't you just share the
absolutely.
child? You know,
So
right?
that brings me to what I was saying earlier. Like
Yeah,
after the time frame that went on, and it took time for Justin to heal, and like we
of
provided
course,
counseling and all that stuff for him.
of
I was
course.
a single dad for 5 years,
Good for you.
for the after that
Mm,
period, and then a couple of years in after his mom no contact prior, she reached out and wanted to talk to him during FaceTime, like video chat, and he didn't want to. And because
No,
I
we have to
had that,
respect our kids, right? It triggers them.
well, yeah, but because I'd had that issue with my dad, and by the time I wanted to talk to
Mm.
him, he was dead. I
Oh, okay,
said that he should, and he did. And they
okay.
talked, and then he was really happy, and she wanted to speak with him. Like every weekend, she said, "Can we do this?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. We'll set it up Sunday nights at 5 o'clock." Da, da, da. She never made another attempt.
Because she didn't want to clean up her life. That's the
Well, I
thing,
don't
is
know
because
why.
you
I,
got
I can't I
clean.
can't I can't make judgments on something that I wasn't involved in. Right?
Yeah,
I don't
that's my
know.
gut instinct. It's
Um,
a big responsibility to have to
but
clean up and shift. You know.
even still later on, like
Mm,
there was a time that she wanted to see him, and I said, you know what? You need to show that you can be consistent. I said, pick a number you can afford. I don't care if it's $20.
mm,
Pay that much in child support every month
mm,
for 6 months, and then we'll talk about you being able to have contact.
mm.
Because people coming in and out of kids' lives is not healthy, right?
Well,
You get
no,
their
and
hopes up, like that,
back when I
hopes up,
had
like
group
that.
homes and that, and I had Crown Ward boys that were in, like, a lot of their moms were with a detriment to them, not just the father.
Mhm.
And as a mom myself, I mean, I kind of like relate to some of yourself because I went a little bit wrong where I put everybody else's children that these monsters. I'm not calling her a monster, but the monsters I dealt with,
Yeah,
that were hurting these kids, and then throwing them to someone like me and my crew to like basically fix them up and put them back out in society. But I will tell you that at night, most of the boys would kind of whisper to me that the biggest thing that upsets them is the push and pull. It's like either be in my life or don't be in my life, because it
yeah,
just triggers them. They get used to not having their mom. I mean, like, we cook these children in our bellies, right? I mean, we're obviously they have some attachment to us, and then it's they just want their mom to be happy. Most boys just want their mom to be stable and happy, and it's not really about providing happiness for them. And it's just it's a sad situation. And
it
but
is. It
I'm
is.
I'm
And
really happy that he at least has you.
oh yeah, well, it's you know what, it's really cool. That we have a blended family as you mentioned, right? But
Yeah.
like I have Justin, which is my blood, and then I have Alyssa
Yes.
and Jacob. Alyssa's 13 and Jacob's 20, high functioning autistic.
Yes.
But he like my father-in-law is having a place done, and then somebody that knows our family saw Jacob there, and he's like, he looks so much like Brooke. And then
Yeah.
Nicole's like, yeah, it's the other dad. But
Yeah.
those things, like nobody would know our family was blended if we didn't tell them.
Oh, I nenever knew until
right? They would
I really
not even
started
know.
reading. I just I
Mhm.
wondered because of the wedding, like I was
Yeah.
privy to the opening of the wedding there, and I was able
Oh
to
yeah.
see. I got emotional because it's like it's so hard to find a partner that understands like a past plus like moving forward in a positive direction, right? So
Well, you
I was
know,
just happy to have each other.
there's always going to be trials. We have our trials.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
we have some tough times. Like my father-in-law's in the early stages of dementia right now, and
that's hard.
stuff goes on, and so you know, it's whether you're willing to put in the time and commit, right? It's
Mhm.
like,
Through the thick and thin, right?
well, when this brings me to something that you were talking about that is on my YouTube channel, is that,
Mhm.
you know, when if you talk to like people that have been married a long time
Mhm.
and like 50, 60 years, and ask them, you know, what how they did it, usually it's because they committed to stay together, right? They come from a day and age where when
Mhm.
something's broke, you put in the effort to fix it,
That's right.
right?
My
Today,
parents were married
something's broke.
56 years,
Oh
and
yeah,
they say the same thing, is that people
yeah.
just give up too quick. And my
Oh
father
yeah.
always said, like, they understood from very young, there is no better greener grass on the other side. Like,
No,
it doesn't matter if
grass
my
is
mom's
greener
not
where you
perfect.
water it,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
And exactly.
But you know, it's scary to know what's going on in this world.
Yeah.
Like there's a short series in there, um, which is the division equation, right? Because way back, you would have the family unit, you would have the kids. The kids are protected by the mom. The
Yeah.
mom and the family is protected by the father. The
Hmm.
father is protected by the close circle. The close circle is protected
Yeah.
by the community. And that's where
Right.
the statement comes, it takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Because back in the day, I grew up in a small island. Everybody knew everybody's business. I used to joke around that every 6 months they would play
Yeah.
musical beds. Somebody would
Yeah.
move two houses to the left. Like
I
that's
like
just
to write
how
up
it
about the
was.
community. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when you know we had some stuff go on that,
Mm.
and this is backstory to life that we're living now. But
Right.
if you look back in like the 20s and 30s, the Rockefellers wanted more money to be able to be taken out of the household, so they started promoting feminism. And don't get
Yes.
me wrong, I'm all about women being strong, but the difference is when they're trying to separate people from the family unit, and the idea
Listen,
was
I
a
don't know what's
women's
going on today
workplace.
in feminism, but some of the stuff I'm seeing like on videos, it's like so shocking. I mean, they took it to just a crazy level.
Everything's
Crazy
been taken
level.
to
I
extremes.
I got a
But
great father. I got great boys, sons.
yeah,
It's nuts the way things are going.
well,
I understand because women didn't have like a voice back then, and they weren't identified as humans, and I get all that, and they got
absolutely.
leveled out. And I understand some things about how, in leadership, the dominance of a man. I've experienced that myself. So depending if you're working for an ego-based person, but
Mhm.
if everybody was just good people, right? And
Well,
we worked as a community like village, we'd all just have a better world.
if you're
You
looking
know?
at things from, if you're either a leader or a boss, right? Those are the two different areas. If you're a boss, you're telling people what to do, you're trying your own place of ego. If you're a leader, you're leading from the front, right? A
Right.
piece of string cannot be pushed in a direction, but it can be pulled.
That's right.
And so when we talk about feminism, I don't talk about the there's nothing bad about being a strong woman. There's nothing
Oh
bad
no,
about standing up
no,
to have your voice.
but we
But
need men.
when it's being pushed to the point
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, um, men are the enemy,
Right.
that's where it creates a problem, because
That's
that's
right.
a start, and then they hit the world with things like pornography and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
try to separate the men. That was the first move, is try to separate the men from the family, and
Totally
then
agree
to
with that.
create friction
I've done
between the men and the
severe,
women.
yeah, I've done severe research on the
Yeah,
pornography industry and how it affects, and it's so
absolutely,
sad. It's so sad. And you know what? It traumatizes kids. There's a
hugely.
kid I worked with that his older brother had shown him a little bit of that, and he was so traumatized. He was vomiting for months and headaches,
Yeah.
and because it was just the one he had watched is very animalistic, and that's not the reality of the world. I mean,
No, it
these
wasn't.
these
And you
women
know
and
what?
men have to be
None of it's reality, and that's the
no,
thing.
and they have to be high on all the shit to numb themselves to just be able
Well,
to just be like animalistic and beast like that. And
you gotta like, and
you know,
that's one of the things that we have to deal with our kids nowadays is we have to
yeah.
have conversations we never would have had to have before,
No, but we need to watch what
right?
they're doing. I mean, I know so many
Absolutely.
parents who just give the laptop or give the iPad and the kid goes in the room for several hours. Well, if there's no block on that, that kid can look up anything they want,
Oh yeah, my kids stuff all
right?
goes through me. It drives my daughter crazy. It drives my wife crazy sometimes too. But I'm like, no, that's not happening.
No, because you know what? There could be one predator out there that you know the signs that's pretending to be something we don't know. I mean, I've many of my friends have suffered that where there's these fake profiles, catfishing predators that come after young women,
Oh yeah.
young men, even young men. I've had young guys
Oh,
be
absolutely.
murdered. Yeah, it's very very sad. And this whole like some of the I won't name drop here, but what I'm seeing a lot online is some of these guys doing the whole masculinity and status school. Well, I can tell you one thing, Brooke. Like I personally have never been into a rich man. I've never even like I'm an entrepreneur and I'm getting there financially, but I've never ever wanted a businessman in my like for a partner. I just want like the backyard wood guy that's gonna like help me walk with a dog and do things that are like into nature and into God and that type of thing and
Yeah.
kind of zen me out. I don't like, not every woman wants this big statue, like, women, cars, champagne,
No,
Bugatti, like, and I've never had the desire and I don't know any women that do. So it's like a lot of this stuff is really programming our children young on the internet. And
oh,
unfortunately, if they don't have parents that are plugging in, watching over them, they can really, their perception becomes a reality. Their brain's not developed till they're 25. So then they become obsessed and
it's
idolize these things. It's
it's
disgusting.
all programming, right? It
It's all
is. There's a
programming.
reason
Yeah.
that TV it's a TV program, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason it's called that because it is programming. Whatever goes into your subconscious mind, and this is very very much if you want to be in charge of your life,
Hmm.
you should be more conscious of what you feed your mind than
That's
what you
right.
feed your body. And most
That's right.
people will eat super clean and they let garbage go in their heads, right? And so
Oh
the
yeah.
garbage in, garbage out, right? What you think about all the time is what's going to create come into your experience.
That's right. I teach people in my company. The reason why my logo is a circle with an inner circle is because, we have, they say 50,000, 80,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot running through the mind,
Yeah.
running through the subconscious, just go, go, go. And we have to learn to catch them and filter them. And, the research, I'm not really into textbook therapy. Textbook therapy never really helped me
Mhm.
growing up. And I
Yeah.
had some pretty bad tragedy, but the thing is that I really do believe that if we can catch that and get it to just tip over at 51% positive over negative, so 49% negative, 51% positive, our brain automatically starts to loop and say, okay, that's what he or she or anyone wants now. They want to be more positive, and it starts to almost filter out the negative.
Well,
And I always grabbed a word. So my word was eject. People can grab whatever they want, but every time I catch one, I'd say eject, eject. And then next thing I
yeah.
know, within 6 months, I was completely different. Like,
Well,
I'm not kidding you. I was
absolutely.
completely different. 6 months.
You
But
would
then I
be.
didn't know what to
That's
do with
there's a
myself.
lot can be done in 6 months. You got to think of 60,000 thoughts per day.
Yeah.
Over 6 months, that's a lot of damn thoughts. Now,
Yeah.
the reality is we have what's called the reticular activating system, or RAS.
That's right.
And your RAS is basically what filters all the information that's coming into you. It's
That's right.
why like you got a new car and you suddenly see that new car everywhere, right?
Oh yeah.
So
That's so funny you're saying that because I had a dream that I had this big Pathfinder, like the FBI type of
yeah,
cars. And I never seen one live. I only just see it in movies, but I had a dream that I was, that someone opened the door for me and I was coming out and I had these like
yeah.
bulletproof. I'm not kidding you. In the next 3 weeks, I was seeing them everywhere. I'm like, where are these coming from? But our city's there's not even like rich folk
They were
around who
always
drive
there.
around these things.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So
Crazy.
what you're talking about though is if we program our RAS,
Mhm.
so our reticular activating system, then it starts to look for those things. So one thing that I do every morning is, and I recommend this for everybody, is take some time and write down, you know, 5 things you're grateful for. I also write down
Right.
5 things I love about my wife every day. So then I start programming my head because even we're going to go through tough times, but if my head's programmed to look for the stuff that I love about her, because it knows that I'm going to write it down the next day. And
Mhm.
so it starts looking for those good things. Look
It's
for what can
funny.
I be grateful for the next day? What
It's
can
funny
I
you're
write
saying
down that I love about my life?
write it down. And
When
I
you
always
write
had a
it
hard
down,
time. I had a hard time writing stuff down. I always
it,
have.
it
You know,
creates stronger neural pathways in your brain.
I know, and there's a proven fact, like the pen to paper, not the typing, the pen to
So
paper
pen to
does
paper,
something.
pen to
And
paper.
I've had a dear friend of mine give me a journal saying, "Hey, just write it down." But I'm from a confidential world, right, where everything is off record. So I often would just plug
Then write
everything
it in
into my
code.
mind,
Then you can write it in code,
right?
right? You can write like you don't have to write it all out. Like, but as far as things like your gratitude, what you're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
write that down. Because what you're going to do, and this is for your listeners, you're going to start to program
Mm-hmm.
what your mind's looking for.
That's
And
right.
if you start programming that RAS to look for the good, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
find the good, right? Like if you look at my shirt, it's a team shirt. Actually, it says everything happens for
Oh,
me, not
I
to me,
noticed, yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's funny
So
because I feel the same way. My team and I are super
the
positive the same way. Yeah,
reality is that everything in my life has always happened for me, always,
mm,
every time, even the worst things that I thought were going on. It wasn't
mm,
until maybe 5 years later that I realized the connection. I could connect the dots looking backwards. Now,
yeah,
my trick now, my goal is to try to recognize that situation in the moment or closer to the moment that,
yeah,
hey, this is something seems negative here, but why is this happening for me? Right? I mean,
right.
another friend, a business partner, and she says, well, her husband used to say, it's all good. Our job is to find the good in it.
That's
Everything's
right.
good. And
That's right.
so when you start focusing like that, those things start to come up. They're just epiphanies. They're there. It's like, oh, okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. And suddenly that negative isn't
Mhm.
there.
Well, a lot of
Right?
times we think these things are burdens, and I often, when I was younger, before I understood a lot more, I wasn't as connected with them myself. And I remember just, eventually you get it, and eventually like, oh, okay, I didn't get that contract because of this.
Mhm.
Okay, that person didn't show up because of that. I don't even think about it now. Like I was supposed to have a meeting about 2 hours ago, and they didn't show up, and oh well,
Well,
like
you're
it's one of those things. You just move on with your day, and you just keep going, right? And you look at the positive, I got another hour to review the content, to
yeah.
hear some of your lessons before I spoke to you, and to me it was worth it in
And
the end.
what is
So
it like something doesn't happen all often
mhm,
because you're meant for something better.
that's right.
Right? And you'd
Right.
be like, oh, that deal fell through. Well, yeah, that deal might have fallen through because it would have stopped you from doing the better deal.
That's
that
right.
that person in there because you know what, God was saving you, or your higher power was saving you from a
hmm
situation that you did not want to be in.
That's right. And I
Right?
really do look at like it's more of the divine. And when you connect and you live a purpose driven life, these things will start to come to you. And it's almost like, for me, it's almost like I pull out and I can almost see everything happen before it ever happens. And like you were saying, when you look ahead and you look back, or you look at something you did and you look back and then you say, okay, what would I do in the here and now? It really just really connects and makes you understand that, I know I look at life like, so it's almost like, it's like a choose your own adventure. Remember those books back in the
Yeah,
day? I
I
don't know.
do. I do. I
Yeah,
used to play
yeah.
those all
So
the
it's
time.
like, okay, well, what's in front of you now? Like all of my programs have the base of the 3 C's. So challenge, choice, and change. What is your challenge that you look at in front of you? What
Mhm.
choices do you have in that moment? What change are you going to make? And what actions you need to take to get the compounding results? So I really help people like map out their lives, kind of like figure, but
Nice.
I'm a lot like you. I take them to the end and figure, okay, where do you want to be in the end? When you're sitting
Mhm.
on your deathbed, are you looking at like the shame, the misery, the guilt? Or are you looking at, oh, okay, I got to do everything that I was supposed to be here in my time here. And then I help them figure out how they want that and what they want to do, and then backward chain. So
Yeah,
backward chaining, and then they can look forward and remap their life. I mean, they're not always going to hit their
absolutely.
target. It's a little bit like this, eh? We try.
You know what? It's like you're never going to be on course.
No.
If you have an airplane and it takes off from here and it's going to New York, that
Mhm.
airplane's on course 2% of the time. It is
I didn't even
constantly.
know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
2% of the time.
Okay.
If you're off by 1 inch on the tarmac as that plane
Yeah.
takes off and you went straight, you would be off by hundreds of miles when you got there. So
Wow. I didn't
as
even
it's
know that.
flying,
That's
yeah, because
crazy.
over the distance that 1 inch becomes so much bigger. And so
Right.
over the distance, basically it's a cybernetic system. So it's going, okay, we're going
Right.
there. So we're off course, we're gonna correct. No, we're off course again, we're gonna correct.
That's
And it
right.
flies like this.
Yeah,
And so in the end, you get to where it is, but it only knows that it's off course because it made a mistake.
that's
And
right.
this is a big challenge, I think, that causes a lot of difficulties, especially with our kids, because in school you're taught to not make mistakes.
That's
You're
right.
taught that if you get questions wrong or you fail, that you're no good.
Only a
It's the
couple of people
opposite.
get chose. Only a couple of
Yeah,
people get trophies. If
it's
you
the
don't
only
get them, you're not
not
top
even so
three.
so no, they actually give trophies to everybody now. It's ridiculous.
Mm.
But the reality in life is the more mistakes you make, the faster you learn. The more times you fail
Listen,
and start
I,
again, the faster you get to your destination.
listen. I don't know about you, but by 20, I'd done so many wrong paths in my life, and it did so many wrong choices that I felt so different than 20-year-olds around me. It's like, can't you see what's happening? Like, don't you
Yeah,
see what's happening right in front of you?
yeah.
No, no. It's
Well,
like,
they work
yeah,
so hard at not even failing, or they're like, okay, well, if I don't try, I can't fail.
yeah.
And
Fail
the
forward,
reality
fail
is,
forward.
yeah, well, the reality is the only time you fail is when you stop trying. Right?
That's
When you
right.
stop, making an effort.
Yeah.
Failure. I actually, this is the only tattoo I ever got. It says it's
Oh,
FINAO. It says failure is not an option. That was what it stands for.
when did you get
And
that
so
done?
I got that done before I got sober. Then
Wow.
probably about 2 years before I got sober. But
Look at your
that's,
conscience was already
yeah,
like already there, eh?
absolutely. And
Like,
and
come
so
on, Brooke, come on, catch up.
yeah, get your shit
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Part
get
of my
your
language.
shit together. Yeah.
But what you were saying there about or just a minute ago, have you ever listened to any Ed Milet?
No,
He's got a podcast. I suggest you check
no.
it out. But
Okay.
he talked about how when you die, I believe when I die, I'm going to meet the person that is everything that I could have been. You talk about regrets. He says my perfect life is that I'm the exact replica of the person that lived to my full potential.
That's incredible the way he's able to communicate that, because I think
Oh,
my
he's
inner
good
core feels that,
communicator.
but I don't know how to communicate my feelings sometimes. So I
Yeah.
can communicate and to people, I can use my nice gift of discernment and talk to
Mhm.
people and get them over. But sometimes for myself, it's like, hey, even like writing my book, writing programs, how do I deliver that message to the
Yeah.
world? And then, but it's like, how do I deliver it to myself? It's very hard to look in the mirror and really understand that inner perspective. Good on him. I will definitely look
Absolutely.
that up,
Yeah, no, it's
100%.
it's it's definitely good. He's a
Mm,
pretty motivational guy, but like his viewpoint is great.
mhm.
And so that just when you said that popped that into
Yeah,
my head is
yeah.
I get to the end of my life, looking back, what do I see? We never regret the things we did, the
Yeah, like
things
I'm
things that
even
we didn't do.
this may sound a little strange, but I'm even drawing up a plan and gonna be building a kind of women's trauma retreat out in
Yeah,
Calgary area and buying land and building like these little
nice.
mini lodging and that for them to come in and out and that type of thing and tour them around and work with them. I basically want them to come in one way and leave a different way and shifting them very abruptly
Yeah.
with a professional team and that. And it reminds me of that because I tell people I sketch like what I want because I'm building like basically it's you arrive and there everything is there, so they get their
Mhm.
treatment and different things. But one of my things is to build a trail, and my teams, some of them felt it was a little bit morbid, but I've worked with a guy to get to this basically fiberglass inserts. And what I'm building is I'm bringing in 50 at a time, so there'll be five lodgings, 10 people each.
Yeah.
Very spiritual, very healing kind of thing,
Mhm.
holistic approach. And then one of the things I have these 10 graves. So, and they're built into the ground, and I'm using like a fiberglass. So it's like when you step into a pool and the stairs
Yeah.
go in. So they go under, and when they get under, they can see up. So they're not feeling like they're trapped, but they can see the dirt because it's transparent, right? So
Mhm.
they can see the dirt, and then there's a little micro thing they put their headset on, and then I literally like talk to them up top. But what's really interesting is I'm dealing with a digital guy. So when they walk up and they're through the trail, now all of a sudden they show up, and there's these 10 graves, and they have these little digital things with red writing, and each grave has their name on it,
I didn't want it. Yeah.
and it has that day. So they're like, oh my God, today is my last day. and it might sound a little bit dramatic, but it pushes their mindset
you
over,
gotta kickstart
right?
consciousness sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah. So they get in the ground and they're looking up, and sometimes it traumatizes them a little. It takes another day to bounce back. We tend to do that quick, but then you see them shift so fast. Okay, what is my purpose? What do I want? What are my goals?
most
Then they
most
almost get
people
excited.
most people are so connected to their physical that they don't realize that they're eternal.
I know. Can I ask you a question? There's so many
Sure.
stuff right now, and as a man, because I'm a female, so I'm a little guyish than the other female, but I'm not a man, and so
Yeah, yeah.
I see a lot of stuff on the thing right now. It's a lot of guys trying to feed off young kids' minds and get to these kids that don't have any self-esteem. Hey, you got to build a big, lean, like David Goggins. You got to be big, lean, muscular guy, and then you're gonna feel good. Now, I don't see it that way, and I don't know your opinion, but yes, you have to have good health. It's good for your psyche. It's good for the mental health. It levels out the chemicals. Your body feels better. You will build your self esteem. But if you have no desire, no desire to look better, well, you kind of almost need to work on the internal aspects of the child and get them to want to do both.
So I think that's funny that you say that because David Goggins wouldn't actually say that, but maybe people might say that they need to look like him.
No, I'm saying
Um,
like
yeah,
basically a
no, I
lot of people
understand.
are on podcasts and they name
No,
drop
I totally
David
get what you're
Goggins
saying.
saying, you got to be like him. But he all
No,
says it has to
yeah.
go in the mind, right?
So in like it's interesting because I actually just finished listening to Camp Break Me a little while ago, and like David Goggins talked all about being mentally tough, right? That's
Yeah.
what he went through. He was like a
Yeah.
300-pound Burman exterminator before he
Yeah.
tried to get into the art or the Navy and stuff.
Yeah.
But that guy had a really traumatic life, like massively traumatic.
No, I didn't
But
even
I
know
think
that.
people like
Mm.
instead of
I love him, by the way. I
how
watch
do I
him all
put
the
it?
time.
That's
I love
good.
him. No
I don't know how
bullshit.
people are trying to tell other people what they should be, and I think a that before anybody goes and takes advice from somebody, they need to look at them and see if they're actually being that person, and
Yeah.
if they're actually happy being that person. They'll tell you like, hey, I got a few extra pounds. I mean, I'm in pretty good shape. I do some physical work. I
Yeah.
don't go to the gym. I can't stand the gym.
Yeah. A lot of guys don't. A lot of
You
women
know,
don't either,
I
but
train
they're fit.
martial arts, every
Yeah.
week and I do stuff. But the reality is you can have the buffest body in the world. And you look at, and I'm going to flip this back on women for a minute. Because if you can look at women, especially, and this has been created a lot by the beauty industry, but you'll
Yeah.
see women that are absolutely gorgeous and they're like, I'm fat or I'm ugly or whatever it is. And until you have that understanding inside that you're okay with you,
Mm.
nothing outside is going to make you feel better. And people try this forever. They
Absolutely.
try to
Yeah.
fix the outside. Oh, I'm going to make the outside pretty to fix the inside. It doesn't work like that.
I
If
know
you fix
because
the inside,
yeah,
the
when I was
outside
young, I
becomes beautiful.
was a competitive athlete. I was in shape. I had long white. I mean, my hair is more yellow from
Mhm.
my pregnancy, son, but white hair down on my butt. I was
Yeah,
popular. I had the lowest self esteem ever. Like
yeah,
if I could go back, I was just I felt insecure. I didn't even know I was attractive. I'd see a picture. Oh, is that me? Like I didn't feel that way
yeah.
at all. Like and it's just it's like you
And
said, until you love yourself on the inside, right?
well, and it's because I think sorry, I can't say exactly why something is, but my personal opinion
Yeah.
is that people are taught to look for outside validation above all else.
And who are you
And it's
looking to validate your
unfortunate.
feelings, right,
Well,
Brooke? You could be
exactly.
looking to a hater to validate
You're
your
looking at
feelings.
most of the time people are looking at the wrong people.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and
Yeah.
especially this is something that's been propagated a lot by social media.
A lot.
And don't get me wrong, I like social media has uses. It's great to communicate with people that aren't in your life anymore. Like they're long lost people, and you stay in touch, see
Yeah.
what's going on. But keep in mind, you're always going to see a highlight reel. Very rarely do people show the ugly. Very
Yeah.
rarely
The
do
truth.
people show what's going on. They might show their nice cars and all that stuff, but they might be that car might be being repossessed next week. They
That's
might
right.
be so far in debt that they're fighting with their spouse because
That's
they
right.
don't know how to deal with it. right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. The bank owns most of the things in people's driveways
oh,
about where I am, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, I saw
Yeah,
somebody they were talking about in Africa and it being so poor. And I said, well, if you see somebody in Africa and they have a house, they own that house. They bought that house. They had the money to
that's
pay
right.
for it. They're
My
driving a car.
efforts have
They
been
had the
in
money to pay for it.
my
Here,
efforts have been in Accra's Ghana Accra for
mhm,
16 years now, and
yeah,
exactly, and they're claim the richer part. I mean, to us they're not as rich, but to them they are because they pay cash for everything. They own it. So,
well,
like you
exactly.
said, they don't have mortgages, they don't have car payments. Like they get the money and they pay it.
Well, I had a mortgage here, but I told my wife like the really reason I took it on is because you know she'd had this place with her ex and wanted to keep a house, and I'm like it doesn't make a lot of sense. If
Yeah,
we're paying 3 times the amount for the place
yeah,
that it's actually worth. Why don't we just
that's
take a
right.
couple years, put together the money, and then just pay for it in cash? Like, but
Exactly.
it made her feel good, so we did it, right? Like,
Yeah,
so you gotta give and take.
that's
But
right.
the reality is that our kids are not taught about money.
Yeah,
Nobody's been taught about money really, unless you
especially in
go and you
school.
find somebody
Yeah,
who can actually teach you how money
yeah,
works, right? And then you know most people are taught, to get a good job or to get a good education, get a good job.
that's
And
right.
unfortunately,
There's no
I
worse
don't
work.
like.
I try to tell my military father is listen, buddy, there's no more working at a plant for 30 years, retiring with a gold watch. He thinks I'm nuts. I'm too driven. I live too high of standards in life. Well, listen, this life, if you don't go get it, you can go to the river with a spoon, you can go with a bucket, or you can go with it, and you got to
Yeah.
go get
Well,
it. It doesn't come knocking at your door.
when I got together with my now wife, right?
Yeah.
Her dad had worked for Air Canada for 40 years, and
Wow.
I
Yeah.
was I was completely self-employed at that time. And
Right.
so she was like, we made some concessions, and I took a
Right.
job working for a telecom, and I've been there part time for the last 2 years. And at the end of
Yeah,
this
I
month,
know that.
I
Yeah. It
divested
helps take
myself.
a buffer off though. Yeah.
Right, I stepped back, and I will tell you, over that time, it's cost us probably an extra $100,000 that didn't come into our household
That's right.
because I was letting somebody else determine how much I was worth
That's
because
right.
they were paying me X amount, and
That's right.
so like it was it worth it to have the peace of mind and get to the point where she was okay with that? I think so.
I think she's
Like
worth it. I don't know. I don't know much about her, but she makes you
like
smile, and that makes me
to that
happy.
point
She
where
looks like a good
that's a
girl.
good thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you got your stuff, right? And so
Yeah.
we
Exactly.
all have to make things, and it took that amount of time for her to get comfortable with the idea of not having to rely on a paycheck
Yeah,
from
because you're moving
somebody
right
else.
into your entrepreneurship, right? I mean,
Well, yeah. So like
we only
I
got
have
a
a
couple
couple of
minutes left, but yeah,
I
you're
have a
moving
couple of
into that.
businesses. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll really briefly. I have one in the Lower Mainland here. We raise sunken concrete, and that's
Okay.
something I'm stepping. I'll be working. That'll be more of a physical, hands-on. That I'll be doing more of. And then the other business I have, and this might be useful to your listeners,
Okay.
is and I'll give you the website that you can put on
Okay.
underneath.
Thank
But
you.
I'm an associate with Legal Shield. We offer legal services at
I've heard
level
Legal
the
Shield.
playing
I've even
field.
been to a presentation.
Yeah.
It's a
So
good company. Yeah.
across Canada and the US.
Yeah. It's a
Okay.
good
So like
company.
I need to get my wills done for me and my wife.
Mhm.
And I didn't it was gonna be like almost 2 grand. And
Yeah.
so my friend, he was like, why don't you get a Legal Shield membership? It's covered. And so
That's
I
right.
did that. And then I was like, hey, this people need to know about this.
Oh, I
So
knew
I
about it, but
stepped
it
into
wasn't
sharing it with
public
people.
knowledge. Someone brought me to a
No,
meeting, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
it's not. It's been around for 52 years, and there's
Yeah.
like 3% of people in North America know about it. And
So I
so
will
yeah, what?
sorry to cut you. The camera's gonna cut off there.
No worries.
I will definitely put all the information in the write up and in your bio,
Yeah,
and get everybody. We'll put a little bit more information because we're running out of time, but
yeah.
we'll definitely we'll get into that. And not to cut you short, but I really
No,
want to
that's fine.
from my heart to you and from the audience, and that just bless your heart for coming on and being transparent. It's very hard for people to share their story, and I'm glad you're brave enough and have the courage. And thank you so much for continuing to influence children and families in their community and their little village. And thank you for having a beautiful heart and for, like I said, having the courage to come on live and express that to people. And I wish you a very lovely afternoon.
I
And
will. I will always.
yeah, so I'll put in the feed where everybody can reach you. And
Sounds good.
thank you so much. Sorry to cut you short there, but
No,
thank you
there's
so
no
much
need
for
to be
everything.
sorry. Thank you for having me, Tracy. And I
Yes.
hope you have a fantastic afternoon.
You too.
Take care.
God bless you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.